Hello, my name is Justin. Today is July 18th, 2016. I will be teaching you in a 3D dimensional space how to build the Dominican Republic Casas for Cristo home. I will also be referring to the two-dimensional simple plans that we have drawn and also to our cut sheet. All of these you should be able to find on Google Drive. For some reason, if we're trucking right along through this video and you notice that this home doesn't look anything like the model you know, you're probably watching an old video and need to find the newer one to watch. So with that said, let's just jump right in. Let's take a look at the two-dimensional plans and just to get you familiar with them first before we tackle the three-dimensional build. So this is the first page of our plans. It gives you basically the layout of the bottom plate of all the walls. So this is wall A, B, C, and then we have wall D, E, F, G, and H. So when we're talking about the walls, these are the walls that we're referring to and what we're calling them here. Here, the empty space here is the porch area. The porch area can flip-flop. It can be on this side of the house. It can be up here. But this is just an example, general layout of the project. If you go down here, you'll see on page 2 the dimensions of the home. So the actual home is 24 feet by 18 feet. The side with the porch area is 18 feet long, exactly from the outside of the house to the outside of the house. Obviously on this long side it's 24 feet long. That should tell you that if you subtract 18 from 24, the depth of this porch area is 6 feet. Here, the space from the inside of wall A to the inside of wall B is 8 feet 6 3/4. So when you look on the cut sheet for these plate sizes, they'll be exactly 8 6 3/4, which we'll show you in a moment. Yeah, so I hope this makes sense to you. We also put in what you should be able to pull from the back wall, inside of the back wall, wall D, up to the inside of wall E. It should be 7 feet exactly. Same here. If you pull from the front wall here, wall H, in from the inside of it in, you'll get 8 feet 8.5 inches, more or less. But we'll talk about that when we go over the three-dimensional plans. And this, not to confuse you here, but just to explain, the 23 feet 8.5 inches covers the inside of wall D of the back wall all the way to the front. So that's actually the size, the total length of wall B, because it doesn't go all the way to the outside of the slab. It connects to the inside of wall D there. So let's keep going here. The bottom plate, window and door placement. So you can take a look at this as well. This is going to correspond to our three-dimensional plan that we're going to cover, and also correspond to the rest of these two-dimensional plans. This is where we've placed windows and doors in this plan, but they can change just like all the other models that we build in every location. These doors and windows are not necessarily locked into this particular spot. It's completely dependent on family desire. So here you can see we have a window in these back 2 bedrooms, a window in the front facing out, a window facing into the porch area, an exterior door, 3 interior doors that are in wall B here, a back door. So we have 2 exterior doors, a 37.5 inch space for both of them, and then in wall C here we have 2 windows in that wall. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows that go into this home, 2 exterior doors, and if you do 3 bedrooms, we have 3 interior doorways there. So let's keep going down. This is a view of the top plate, not the bottom plate. The reason this is different because we have the wall extend out a little bit to accommodate the overhang for the roof. So the roof length is 26 feet long versus the length of the actual bottom plate of the wall, which is 24 feet long. So you have a 26-foot long roof. Still 18 here, outside wall because we're not talking about rafters at all yet. Obviously 26 at the bottom here. Now the porch area from the front of the wall H here to the concrete, so here to here is 6 feet, but we have another foot to go for the overhang of the roof, so you have a total of 7 feet overhang here from the outside of wall H to the outside of the actual roof line. And we're showing you here that from the outside of the roof line in is 2 feet to the post, to the outside of the post here that you're going to set that we'll talk about. So we'll show you that. We'll keep going here. It's a quick how we do the rafter layout. I won't really talk about it now. I'd rather show you in three-dimensional space, but this will help you see exactly what's going on with how we are laying out the rafters. Same with the purlins, which are those 1x4s we set on top of the rafters to give the metal roofing something to screw to. And then obviously we have the plans here that show you how to build each wall. And then we have an example of the plates here and how to lay them out, which I'll cover with you in a little bit. So I'm just going to quickly go through these so you can see them, that we have them all here. All right, good. Let's take a look at the cut sheet. This is the same thing. It's just two of the same thing. Let me show you what we got going on here. So there are three different sections here that correspond to the different 2x4 sizes we have. We have 3 different 2x4 sizes that will be delivered to the site for you. 14-foot 2x4s, 12-foot 2x4s, and 10-foot 2x4s. So when we're talking about building the home in the model, I'll tell you exactly where you're going to take some of the measurements out of which type of 2x4, what size of 2x4 here. So just so you can see that. Pretty simple. On the cut sheet, you don't have to change anything or do any math. It's just this same cut every time. So it's pretty simple. Okay, so with that said, let's go to the Google SketchUp model here. And just like all models, it normally starts with a form. So let's get that form in there. So this should look pretty familiar to you. Doing any type of Casas for Cristo project. What you'll notice here is we don't nail these together in a pinwheel because we don't necessarily need to on this project, and I'll kind of explain to you why. So you're going to nail it just like this. There's going to be 2 long sides, 2 shorter sides. The 2 long sides are going to nail into the short sides, just like you see here. What we have here, we talked about what kind of wood we have, 14s, 12s, and 10s. You're using 10s and 12s on this form. So you can go over there, find the straightest 10-foot ones you got and the straightest 12-foot ones you got. And you can put them together, and I'll show you where they go here. So you have this short side here is from end to end will be about 20 feet because you're going to use 3 10s to fasten this together. So 2 10s butted up to each other and then another 10 to join them together. This other side, the same thing, 10, 10, and a 10. These longer sides are a 12, and a 10 to join them together, both sides. But what's very important here is because we want to make a slab exactly 18 by 24, just like we showed you on the 2-dimensional plans for the dimension of the house, You need to make sure that these two 12s here are cut to exactly 12 to make exactly 24. So you can nail them together, then pull your tape measure, mark 24 feet, and then cut one end off. You can cut them both beforehand. It doesn't really matter to me. Just make sure that these are exactly 12 or this length is exactly 24 feet, because we don't want them to be longer. And also, as you well know, most of the wood comes out milled out a little longer than what they are specified to be. These 10s, you don't need to do that, because what I normally do is I take my tape measure here, I pull in a foot just like you see there, make a line so I know where to nail this side into it, and then I pull my tape measure from that line all the way to the inside of the other line and get 18 feet just like you see there, make another line, and then you can nail right into it. Okay, so now that we have our form put together, let me show you the stake placement. Okay, you'll have enough stakes to place them just like I show you, 4 in the corner, 3 on the long sides, and a minimum of 1 on the short side. You probably will have enough stakes to do 2 on these shorter sides, but at least put 1 in there in the middle. You'll also have enough lumber if you need to quickly go over to the wood pile that was delivered, and maybe cut yourself some wood stakes out of a 10-foot 2x4 or a 12-foot 2x4. So just to show you that. So let's get rid of that. Just like you're probably used to, we use a transit to level the corners out. You should know how to use one of those. If not, you need to ask somebody on staff that knows how to and figure that out. You'll have a transit in your kit. Once that's done, you'll go around and you'll stake the corners to be level with one another on the same plane. And then we need to go ahead and come in here and make our middles match our corners. So you are going to run a string line, which will be provided for you to straighten up those sides. You'll run the transit level, and then you'll go ahead and place your interior stakes just like that. You can take up your string line when you're done with that, and let's put our lot in. The footers are the same here. A shovel wide, a shovel deep should be plenty to be able to put rebar in, which we'll show you in a second. Shovel wide and shovel deep footers all the way around the inside of the form. We put together a screed board out of 2 14s and 2 scrap blocks to level the inside of the form to get the dirt to the right level so our floor is the right depth. We make sure that our floor is 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches deep, so 2x4 width deep. What we do is we nail these 2 14s overlap together like that to make a total distance of this screed board to be 17 feet 11 inches. So you're going to have about a 1/2 inch gap on each side, so you can move it freely inside here pretty easily. And then we just nail in a scrap block about 1 foot to 2 feet long on each side to give us some handles for it to sit on. What I like to do sometimes is I like to run a string line from the top of the middle of this side to the top of the middle of this side. Maybe take a 2-inch nail, set it there, run the string line. That way I make sure that this screed board isn't dipping at all. That way we don't, end up having to pour more concrete in here that is necessary. We don't want you to run out of material to pour your floor. So those are some suggestions I have. Moving on, we can get rid of that screed board there for the dirt, and then you're going to have some rebar channels like this made into a triangle already pre-welded for you and pre-cut to fit into the space. If for some reason that it doesn't fit, it's a little too long, you're going to have a set of bolt cutters in your toolkit to be able to cut the rebar to fit in there nice. You want to make sure that you're overlapping this rebar to fit into each other like that, and then you're going to have some wire in your kit to tie these overlapping spots together, some thin wire to do that. So we want to hook everything together, these all four corners, put plenty of wire there, tie them together, and then you're going to unroll some wire mesh or net or whatever you want to call it. People call it different things, but you're going to have this rebar net to roll out. It's going to roll out from end to end the long way, so these should be exactly 24 feet long. You're going to have two sides. This isn't to scale, these 3 rows, but you're going to have two pieces that are about 7 to 8 feet long that will go on the outside, and then you're going to have a thinner piece that'll roll in the middle, and then you're going to tie all of that together just like you did the rebar channels in the corner here. So tie that all together, make that look really nice and secure, and then it'll be ready to go. The only other thing left to do before you can start pouring is to set your post. You're going to get a 12-foot 4x4 post that will go in the corner that you're going to put your porch. You're going to set it in exactly a foot. Exactly a foot. Guess I'm not representing it well. About a foot. How about we call it that? About a foot. That way, you know, your roof is gonna come out here like we showed you on that top plate dimension, 2 feet. So you'll have 2 feet and no more than 2 feet for the roof to extend past this post here, the top plate of that wall there to support the roof. So you're gonna nail it right into the. You're gonna nail the post through the form into the post here to secure it in that 1 foot spot there. And then you're going to use braces to brace this thing. What I like to do, or what I like to use for the braces, is I like to go over and grab 2 studs that are cut. All the studs are 7 feet long, which you can see on your cut sheet. Maybe we'll bring that up right now. Let's see here. As you can see, all the studs here are 7 feet long. They should be cutting these by the time you get to this point, hopefully. And then I'll grab those 2 and I'll use that to brace this post level this way and this way. Obviously, you can see that this comes at quite an angle. That's okay. Just toenail that in there to secure it really nice, and level it out both ways, and you should be good to go. Before you set this rebar channel and this net and this post, you're going to have to dig a hole for this post right here to be about 2 to 2.5 feet deep and about 8 inches in diameter, so that there's enough concrete that can pour around this post and that it's deep enough to be pretty solid. I like to throw a rock, pretty big rock at the bottom of that hole, just to give this post something to sit on so it doesn't really settle a whole lot into that dirt, if that makes sense. So before you start putting all this rebar in there, before you set this post, you need to dig yourself a hole right there in the footer, about 8 inches in diameter, so there's enough concrete and that it's deep enough to be pretty solid. So once you get to this point, you can go ahead and you're probably going to take lunch, I'm guessing, about this time. And then after lunch, you'll probably start pouring. You know, every build's different, but that's kind of normally how it goes for us. And then you're going to start pouring. So we have 2 mixers provided in the toolkit. We set them up inside the form, and then we just move them as we pour. We like to fill this thing up evenly, nice and evenly as we go, so we can use a screed board as soon as possible. And then behind it, the bull float. You don't want to wait too long because it'll dry out on you. Here we have an example of the proportions in which to pour a single load of concrete. We have a bucket of water, a bucket of cement, 3 buckets of gravel, and 3 buckets of sand. The water, the sand, and the gravel we fill up to the bottom of the rim that's in this 5-gallon bucket. The cement, however, we fill up to, there's a label, a blue label on the buckets that we have. We fill up to the top of that label, so it's a little bit less than the gravel, sand, and water. If for some reason there's no label anymore, we have different buckets. Basically, the proportions you want to use are 3/4 of a bucket for sand, gravel, and water, and 2/3 of a bucket for cement. So a little bit less cement. When you're pouring or mixing these together, you're going to throw water in first, then a gravel, then a sand, then a cement, gravel, sand, gravel, sand. I normally put 2 people on each mixer, and I teach them to have one person throw the water and the 3 gravel, and the other person to throw the 3 sand and the cement, so they can keep track of their proportions that they're putting in. But you can use whatever method you like the best. The only thing that should change quantity-wise or amount-wise on this whole thing is the water level. Sometimes the sand is a little more saturated than it, some other times. So you can use a little less water. Sometimes it's really dry, so you need more water. So that's the only thing that should change. You shouldn't put more sand, gravel, or cement ever. With that said, the screed board that we use to pour, we take 2 12-foot 2x6s, overlap them and nail them together to make about 21 feet long screed board here. And we use that, works really nice. It's nice and rigid, doesn't really tend to dip at all, so that's my recommendation. So you're gonna pour this thing, and then you're gonna be done pouring it, and it's gonna look like this. The one thing that we didn't cover are our anchor bolts, which you see here. We don't use straps, we use bolts. We position them to be about 1 3/4 inches in from the form, so it would end up in the middle of the wall plate when you need to fasten them down. And then let me show you where we place them. We place them a foot from the corner, from each corner, a foot from the corner, and then basically somewhere in the middle. So our studs lay out on every 2 feet, so if you find the middle, which is 12, and go 1 foot on either side, or just pull 11 feet from either the front or the back, that's where I'd place it. That way you don't hit a stud. The same here, foot. I believe from here to here you can pull 7 feet. Let's take a look. Our tape measure here, 7 feet or so. Yeah, 7 feet or so. You can put your bolt there. Foot from each corner. Here, if you remember on the porch side, this room here is 18 feet long from the outside to the outside of the wall. So if you pull 9 feet, you'll be good, 9 feet or so. This bolt here, obviously, it's not in the corner of the slab, so you can pull 17 feet and hit it there, about 17 feet, and set your bolt. That way it's in the corner of this 18-foot long room. This one here is kind of the same principle because it's more or less 9 feet to the middle of the house where wall B will run. You can pull it about 7 feet, and you'll get your placement for this bolt. So overall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bolts. If you happen to have extra, you can place them in there if you would like, but this is the minimum amount that we are requiring you to do. So let's go ahead and take off our forms here. Let's put our other post in there. That we'll show you that. As you can see, it shrunk there, and I'll teach you about that here in a second. Get rid of some of this stuff here that we don't need. Stakes, the form. So when you roll up on day 2, this is basically what it should look like, except your post here is going to be a little taller. So let's just show you that real quick. Let's throw post 1 in there. So this is the uncut post here. My recommendation is that you cut this thing before you start standing walls. So to cut it to the right depth, you're going to measure from the floor or the foundation here up the post 7 feet. 7 feet let's say 1.5 inches. Okay. See, we got our mark there, and then take a speed square and mark where it needs to get cut exactly like that, and then take a circular saw and cut that bad boy. That way you'll have the right height. So when you do cut it, it'll look something like that. So you'll have exactly 7 feet 1.5 inches to the top there, and then that when you set the wall on, the plate will sit perfectly right on top of that post. So the other thing you'll need to do to this slab after you take your forms off is to mark the lines of where we're going to place the walls. You should be familiar with how to do this because we do it on our other homes as well, but let me just kind of show you the order in which I mark my lines. I usually go to this long side on the opposite side of the porch side, and I make my first line. So you measure in 3.5 inches from the corner there, 3.5 inches from the corner there, pop your line, and then you will take a tape measure from the edge of the slab in up that line. You'll measure 3.5 inches, make your mark there, and then from that mark you're going to pull some people just do 3, 4, 5 triangle. My recommendation is to at least do 6, 8, 10. So you would pull up, let's say 8 feet on this side, make your mark, and then from there you would pull 6 feet, and then when you pull from here to here, it should be 10 feet, which it is. Okay, so you'll pull your tape measure from this mark here to this line, and wherever 10 feet meets this line perfectly, you're going to make a mark, and you'll know where to chalk this line here. So let's delete those guys real quick and just put that line in. So now you have your 90-degree right angle here, and you will no longer ever use the edge of the concrete to measure anything. You just want to use these lines because you know that these lines are perfectly square. So what you'll do is, I like to come in here and pull this way 17 feet 5 inches, because that'll represent inside of wall A to inside of wall C, and do that here and also do it here, and then we'll pop that outside line there. So we have our wall A, wall D, and wall C lines measured. You can pull, as we talked about earlier. Let's see if we can take a look here. We talked about earlier on the plan. This distance here, it's better to show it here, is from wall A, man, come on Microsoft Word, there we go. From wall A to wall B here, this plate size is 8 feet 6 3/4. If you just want to reference your cut sheet, you can do that as well. Let's see if I can pull up the cut sheet. Walls E and F, G and H the plate are 8, 6 3/4, as you can see there. So to get that distance to wall B, you just need that plate size. So you would measure 8, 6 3/4 in, make a mark. Same down here, 8, 6 3/4 in, make a mark, and then you can pop your wall B lines. So you only need one line. I just put 2 in there so you could see where this wall is going to sit. But you only need that line pulling 8, 6 3/4. And then I only put 2 more lines in here, guys, and I'll explain to you why. This wall here, wall G, because outside to outside that we talked about is exactly 18 feet long. Inside to inside is 17.5, just like the back. So you can pull it there, mark it before you chalk it. So let's get to that. So you pull it there from here to here, 17.5. Pull it from here to here, 17.5. Somewhere in here somewhere. And then you can pop your line again. Again, I made 2 lines just so you could see where that wall is going to sit, but this is the actual line. This inside line is the one you just popped. And then we have just one more line to make because this distance of the slab and the home is 24 feet outside to outside. Inside to inside of the exterior walls are 23 feet 5 inches because we've subtracted 7 inches for the plates. So you can pull 23.5 right there, both here and here, and then you'll be able to snap your line here. So let's go ahead and do that. Then you have your lines that you need. We didn't snap the lines in here for walls E and F, or if you just make this 2 rooms, which we'll talk about, just one for that interior wall to divide the 2 spaces. So the reason I don't is you could be a little off on your plate measurements, and we just want to check before we start popping lines and nailing things down. So once you have this, you are ready to stand your walls up. Now I'll show you the order that I stand them up in. But first, let's refer to the simple plans here, the 2-dimensional plans. I just want to show you each wall before we stand them up. Just talk about them real quick. Wall A consists of, I really got to stop doing that. Wall A consists of, we're freaking out here. We're freaking out. All right, here we go. A 14, a 12, a 12, and a 12 for your plates. So your 2 top plates are 14 and 12. 2 bottom plates, 12 and 12. As you can see, we pull a foot in and make a line on your plate so you know you got this overhang covered, so you know where to kind of line up your top plate. Same here, it's a foot. So you line those up, and then you can see that the studs are set every 2 feet centered from the corner, or the outside corner there. So you can pull those just like that. We have 2 windows set. The windows are 24 inches. The space needs to be 24 inches wide. So you can see what we did is we went to the bottom plate here. We pulled 2 feet 10 inches to the inside of that window, pulled from there 24 inches, and that gave us our window space, and then the studs went on either side of that. Same here, from this double stud here that you're going to mark, we pulled from the outside of that one in 2 feet 7.5 inches, and that ended up being the inside of our window, the left side of it, and then we pulled 24 inches from that, and the studs went on either side of that. These double studs here represent where walls will meet this wall that are 90 degrees turned. You know, they connect into these doubles, kind of like the U-joints we use in the Mexico house. We have the same sort of system in Guatemala. So to mark those, you're going to come to the outside of this double stud, or the outside of the bottom plate, and you're going to pull 7 feet 3 3/4 in, and that'll be the left side of this double stud here. And then if you pull from the outside the bottom plate on this side here, 9 feet 3.5 inches, that'll represent the left side, or the inside of this double stud here. As you can see, we did the same thing here on wall A. So that's kind of how it goes. What I normally do is I mark that 1 foot, line up my plates. You know, I'll mark out these double studs in the corners. I'll pull my double studs first. Then I'll come in and pull my windows, and then I will fill the rest out with the marks for the stud placement. So every 2 feet, basically. Obviously, it skips 2 in the middle because we have these 2 for the window. You have another here, another here, another here. Let's take a look at wall B. Same sort of system here. You need a 9, 8.5, a 14, 11, 8.5, and a 12 to get your plates all ready to go. And then I come in and mark where my doubles are. Then I come in and mark out where my doors are, and then I fill it in with studs. So here, there is no overhanging top plate. It's just flush. So you can just line it up. And then to pull for your double stud here, it's 6, 3.5. You can make a mark and then pull back 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, mark out your double stud. You can pull 33 inches from the left side of these double studs this way to be this doorway here, which is 33 inches wide. And then there will be actually another double stud. So this doorway here is framed in with 2 double studs to get this 33-inch space here. So you can do that, and then you can pull from the outside of the left side in 7 feet and 1/4. Get your double stud marked, mark all that out, 1.5 inches, then pull out for your doorways, and then come back and fill in with your studs. So keep going here. You need a 12, a 14, an 8, and a 10 for your wall C. This is where the porch area is, and this plate here is what sits on that post. That'll be here. So you can kind of visualize that in your head. Same thing. There is a roof overhang on this one, so the plates don't line up. Obviously, there's a drastic one here. It might look a little funny. Your team's going to say, is this right? This doesn't look right. You just got to give them the confidence that you know what you're doing. So pull from the outside of the bottom plate in 4 feet, make a line, and then 24 inches from there. That'll get you your window space here. It's the same deal on this side. If you're doing wall C like this, sometimes they're going to want just one big window here, or maybe just one 24-inch wide window here. If they want a big window here, all you have to do is make a space 48 inches wide in your wall, and then you can put 2 windows together in that space. So you'll have to go over to your wood pile, see what you got left at the end of cutting everything, and cut yourself 2 48-inch header and sill pieces just like here, because they're not on the cut sheet, and then you can frame in a 48-inch wide space here. One thing I haven't touched on yet is measuring when you actually have the wall framed together, except for these windows where the sill and the header piece goes. Pull 35 inches from the inside of the bottom plate to the bottom here of the sill. That gap will be 35 inches. Most importantly though, from the top of the sill to the bottom of the header piece is a 40.25 inch space that you need to get that window height to fit in there. So I just wanted to point that out really quick. Also, you can see, we've defined how wide or how tall this wall is with the stud, which is 7 feet long, which you can also correspond that to the cut sheet. Wall D, you need a 10, a 7.5, a 7.5, and a 10. Stagger the joints here. So if you have the 10 at the bottom over here, put the 10 at the top on the left side over here. You're going to pull in 8 feet, 8.5 inches, and that'll be the middle of this double stud here, because we have wall B that connects into this. And then you pull from the middle of that double stud 8.5 inches to get your doorway here. Your doorway is an exterior door, which is 37.5 inches. From the inside of the bottom plate here up, you need to pull 81.5 inches, or from the outside, for the very bottom here, you can pull 83 inches, and that'll be the height that the door needs to be. So be conscious of that. Everything, should look pretty familiar now to you, how we're doing the layout here. Wall E and F are really easy to do. You grab 2 of those 8, 6 3/4, and then basically every 2 feet, Here, obviously, we could have put a stud in right here. We could have put a stud in right here, but there's no structural reason to do that. There's no insulation that fits in here or anything like that. So we just took it out. So that's why there's a big gap here, just to save on wood a little bit. So you can make wall E and F, or if there's just one wall to partition those two rooms into two instead of three, you just need to build one of these. We'll keep going. Wall G in our example here has a door and a window in it. It might only have a door in it. So what we've done is we've pulled 7 inches into the inside of the doorway, and then your doorway is 37.5 inches wide for the space, 81.5 again. Again, this looks familiar. 35 up, 40.25. The height of the window, 24 inches wide for the window, a 7-foot stud. We've shown you where to pull all these from, so this should look super familiar. And then the last wall, this is what it would look like if you center a window in the middle of one of these shorter walls. So you can see where to pull from. It's exactly centered the window for wall H. So there you go. I want to just touch on one thing really quick. We have, up until this point, we have never placed these 2 exterior doors anywhere else except for where they're shown in this example. So maybe they'll want it somewhere else, but just based upon this whole setup, my guess is it's just these exterior doors here aren't going to change. One's going to be in the porch area, and there's going to be a single pass through to get to their back area, their backyard area. So just wanted to quickly highlight that. Let's go back to our model. Let's see. So after building wall A, come in and stand it up just like that. You know, that inside will go on that line. Go ahead and nail down in between every single stud into the floor through the bottom plate. I usually put 2 in the corner. Your ends should match up on the edge of the concrete, and it should look really nice. You can see those double studs that we built that are in there, and you're going to see where wall E and F connect into those in a second. But first, before we do that, I usually place wall A in, and then I will place wall D in. Obviously, your site situation might not allow for this, but if you have it, this is kind of the order I like to do it. Seems to go pretty smooth. So wall D connects into that double stud. Let me unclick it here. Connects into this double stud, and it should be flush to the back of it. So let's click that in there. So this right here is flush. Put 2 nails, and 2 nails in, and make sure that everything's connected together really nice and solid and firm. Don't run this wall on the concrete, but run it on your line, because your concrete slab here probably is going to be a little wavy on the edge. So just pay attention to this line. If everything looks nice and this looks like it matches up, the end of this looks like it matches up on this line really nice, but you can go ahead and nail this down as well. Don't nail in this doorway. Just be conscious of that, because you're going to have to pull the nails out when you cut this bottom plate out section here for your door. This is where I will place in wall E and F, and then we'll talk about it really quick here. They go into these double studs here, this one here, this one here. As you can see, I don't nail anything. I just have 2 people hold these walls in place because I want to see how these 2 walls line up with my double studs in wall B here before I nail anything down. So I just want to see the situation here, make sure, you know, if they made a mistake cutting these plates, if you made a mistake squaring the slab, if you made a mistake pulling your wall here, the measurements and all that for your double stud spots, then things might not line up square. So we'd rather things be square than not be square. So just be patient. Just have somebody hold these into place here. You can go ahead and throw wall H in, which will be, it should be flush here again. It should line up, the end of it should line up on this line you chalked here for wall B. You know, you should line it up on that line you had there. Go ahead and take a look at that line. It should be right on that line. You can do 2 nails, 2 nails, 2 nails, nail it down here if it looks good, and then we can go ahead and place wall B in there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and place wall B in there, and then we'll show you how it should be connecting together. So once wall B is placed, notice that there is 2 rooms that are of equal size, and then the front room is a little bigger. So when they're carrying this wall in, make sure that they're carrying it in, because it's no good to bring it in here and then have to bring it out and flip it back around if it's tricking your eye. But just take note to what's going on. You can also see that there's a double stud here at the end of wall B, but not here, just a single. So they need to carry that single one in there. So it should match up to your walls really nice. And this is where we're gonna talk about how E and F, you should check E and F and how they're lining up before you nail them in. So you can see here, there's a double stud here in wall B and a double stud here, and that's where walls E and F should be connecting in, and they should match up to the double studs. Let's take a look on this side that are in wall A here. See that here and here as well. How you check this, so line up wall E here with the double post either in wall A or wall B, and then bring wall E to line up the same way you have it lined up over there with this double post. So they should look the same on both sides. Some people flush it up on one side, some people give it a little 1/4 inch overhang, because together the 2 double studs here are 3 inches, but the width of that 2x4 stud here is 3.5, so you can have a 1/4 inch reveal on both sides. You can flush it up on one side. Doesn't really matter. Just make it the same here as you do over here, and then you pull a tape measure on the ground from the plate here to the plate there, and then check it here. Okay, if it's not the same, that means that there's something wrong, and you need to move wall E on one end to compensate for the lack of unsquaredness. So my recommendation, obviously this is why you didn't nail it, is to move the side that connects into wall A, because there's no doorway on that side. If you were to move this side either in or to the left or to the right, you might be in the middle of this doorway. So keep it the same on this double post, and then line it up on the other side accordingly. Hopefully you never have to move it more than a 1/4 inch or something like that. You know, 1/4 inch is a 1/4 inch. It happens. You know, an inch and a half, there's something really funky going on, and you need to kind of take a collective look at the whole project here and see maybe what the problem is. You know, pull your tape measure on your walls to see if you measured right, whatever. But it doesn't really matter as long as you have enough to nail on this side, just moving it like a 1/4 inch or so. You square it up on the floor. That way they have a nice square room in there. The same on this side. Do the same thing. Keep it locked into this double stud here. Line it up like you like it, and then only move this side either to the left or to the right to make this room square here. If you really want to check and see how things are going after you do that, you can come here and pull a tape measure, make sure you're square in here, but you should be good to go. They can come along in here and nail this down once you have set your nails here, 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 and here. They can come in and nail the bottom plate in, making sure it's right on that line you chalked, because these bottom plates can be a little bowed. So just make sure that they're straightening it out as they nail it. And remember not to nail into a doorway here because obviously you don't want to have to pull that up. So once that's good to go, we can proceed to nailing in wall C and wall G here. My suggestion is to nail in wall G, but you can, again, if you find it easier to nail in wall C first and then put wall G in, that's your prerogative. Doesn't really matter. So let's go ahead and throw wall G in. Wall G is going to connect into this double post here. You know, you want 6 nails at least in that thing. It should be on your line there, and then your doorway should be, it shouldn't come into your doorway at all. It should be completely out of your doorway. So if not, you should kind of check and make sure your chalk line was measured right and all that. Once that's nailed in, you've already cut this, so you can go ahead and throw wall C in there. You see how wall C sits on top of that post. You cut it to be the length of a stud and one plate. That's exactly how it should look. Even though it's sitting on this post, don't nail down into this post until you've plumbed and braced all the walls, because you don't want to pull this, you don't want to nail it down and then move this wall and then pull this post out of level because you nailed it first. So again, this should nail flush to the back. Wall C, it should nail nice and flush up here. You should nail down your bottom plate. You should be good to go. You might be asking yourself, if you've never built a home in the Dominican or Guatemala yet, how exactly you get these bolts through the bottom plate. You have a drill and you have a drill bit to drill out these holes. You need to grab a couple blocks, set this wall. So let me give you an example of that real quick. Let's just take out all these walls except for A. So you need to set wall A. Let's just move it here to the inside a little bit, like that. Set it on a couple of 2x4s here, here, and here, so it's lifted up off the slab. Then make sure that it's lined up this way on the edge of the slab there, and on the edge of the slab out here. Then what you want to do is take a pencil, make a line where this bolt lines up, and then you're going to measure from the line basically to the bolt, about to where the center of where the bolt will be. So here we have about an inch and a half or so, inch and 9/16. Then wherever you marked your line for where the bolt is, you're going to pull from that side in an inch and 9/16 and make an X or whatever you want to do. That way you know exactly where you should be drilling your holes out. So when the team lifts this wall up and sets it into place, it should be fairly easy to line it up end to end, because your holes should be right where they need to be. And when you set it down through the holes, these bolts, it should be lined up real nice. You can bang the wall a little bit with that mini sledgehammer, and these bolts will bend with it if you need to kind of adjust how it's lined up. But that's basically the process of how you go about doing that. So okay, let's put our walls back there. So you have all your walls up, they're all nailed in. Now it's time to plumb and brace these walls with braces, and what we use for braces are 1x4s. Let me just throw an example on there. You're going to level it, obviously, with the level, and you're going to put 1x4 in there. You're going to nail it at the bottom plate, then run it up all the way, and then you're going to nail it up here once it's level. I just want to show you a couple of things before we move on to other things here. Notice that I have this 1x4 coming underneath of the top plate here. Underneath of it. That's because if you put it on the above it and you have it resting on that plate, you won't be able to put the second top plate on that we're going to put up here in a second. So make sure you run this 1x4 either underneath of this plate or way above this this plate here. That way you can fit another 2x4 on top of there. Let me just throw that second top plate on. You see how we're going to put another row on there? You don't want that brace to be in its way. Also notice that we nailed the brace on the inside of the house. That is also what you need to do, because if you nail it on the outside, you won't be able to put your siding on. And your siding is what we need in order to take these braces off. So with that said, let's put all the braces on here. That way you can kind of see where they all need to go. So basically there needs to be a brace on every single wall or any place that needs to be firmed up for the time being until we put siding in our roof system on. So you see we braced this wall here, we braced wall H, we braced wall G, we braced wall F and E and D. You can see these braces there. Just turn it to the side here. We braced wall A right here in the back, coming underneath there. We braced wall B with this one brace here. You don't need one out here, you just need this one. We braced wall C. We could actually go all the way inside the house here and not have to have any hanging out because it's a really long room. So remember, into the bottom plate because it's solid, and then as high up as you can go to really grab that entire wall. I can't stress to you how important it is that these braces are anchored into the bottom plate, because in order for this to be an anchor, it has to be into something solid. So make sure you're doing that. Same down here. The only other weird brace in this whole thing is this crazy one we have going across here. We have it nailed into the bottom here and it being nailed into the stud up here. What that's going to do, guys, is brace this wall from being like, you can put your hand on this wall somewhere like right here and move it a lot because it's not really solid. What this brace is going to do is it's going to solidify it, so it's easier to work with the roof. You can use just put a level against this side here and then level it up, plumb it up, and brace it. Alright, so once those are on, they're going to stay on until you have your siding on. You're going to basically till the siding's on. Wall E and F, those are going to stay there until you have OSB on there, your plywood on. So don't take those off. And then this one here, this one that's a little different that goes from here up, that one's going to stay on until the roof system's on. But I'm going to get rid of those right now. That way it's easier for us to see. So once those are all braced, and again, they're still braced, I just took them off so you can see better. There's several things that you can do. You can start siding, you can start electrical, you can start putting the second top plate on, and then after that doing the roof system. And so we're going to cover those right now. I guess quickly, while everything's kind of open looking, let's just take a look at where you're going to place your breaker box, your outlets, and your switches. So the breaker box you want to place, up high like this, wherever closest to wherever they're going to bring their power in. Maybe from the existing old home that they have, maybe there's a pole at the street and you'd want to put it up here in this corner or something like that. But just put it where it's going to be convenient for them to not have to spend a lot of money on running a line on the outside to connect to whatever they need to connect to. So you can ask the pastor, the family directly. If you can't speak Spanish, just hold the box up and point inside the house and they'll follow you and help you. Outlets and switches. Okay, so this is how it's going to go. There's going to be 2 outlets and a single switch in this room, 2 outlets, a single switch in this room, 2 outlets, a single switch in this room. There's going to be 3 outlets, okay, and 2 double switches in this room. We're going to end up putting a light inside the porch area here and then a light out in the back here. That's why there's a double switch. And there's going to be a light here and a light right about there where the roof is. So that double switch here is going to operate this light and this light. And then this double switch here, you can see the box right there. It's going to operate this light and the light out there. So you can see we put two outlet boxes here and then one over here. The reason I put the 2 over here is in the example is a lot of times they're going to use this area as a little kitchen area. and they like to have 2 there if they need to run some, you know, like a blender or you know, their little oven or whatever they got to put in there. Maybe they want to move them up high. Just ask them what they want, and they'll help you out with that. Inside here, obviously, we put 2 here. We put the 1 here and 1 there, and then in this room we put 1 here and 1 here. The reason why we kept these outlet boxes in these walls and in this middle wall, and we didn't put anything out here, we're trying to conserve wire as much as possible. So try to keep that these boxes as tight to the side where the box is on as you can to conserve wire. We'll show you where the light boxes go here in a little bit once our roof is on, once it's framed in. That way you can see where these lights are. In the meantime, though, let's go over siding. So you need to measure your siding. I believe the siding is 7¼ inches tall here. I believe this is 7¼ inches. So what I do once all the walls are plumb is I take a chalk line. Let's get rid of this. I take a chalk line and a pencil, and then I get a couple of volunteers, and I measure up from the bottom here, up here to about 7½, so like a quarter inch more than the height of the siding. And I mark that on all the corners all the way around the house. And then I take a chalk line. Let's just mark it over here so you can see 7½ inches. Okay. And then I take a chalk line and I pop a line just like that, all the way along the outside. So you'll have like a little blue or red or black mark on every stud. That's going to be the top of the first row of our siding. It's nice and straight, and it should be plumb if your floor is, you know, if you poured your floor nice and level. Should be nice and level if your floor is level. So use that line, and that's where they're going to line up their first row. So they should be lining this first row siding on that line that they chalked. You're going to use 2-inch nails, and you're going to put 2 nails into each stud and the fat part of the siding. So what I mean by fat part, it's wider here, fatter here than it is up here. You're not going to put any nails in this area, this whole area here, but in this area here. So you put like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way. The siding is going to be flush with the side of the wall, just like that. So you may need to cut it for that to happen. And you need to have every piece of siding land halfway on a stud. That way the next piece can connect to it. So let's throw that next piece on there and show you. So this piece of siding here is sharing this stud with this one here. So just be wary of that. The second row here, you can't do the second row the first way that you did the first row. You can't do the second row the same way you did the first row because we want to stagger where all the seams are. So this is a seam here, so we don't want another seam here. We want it farther away. This is more pleasing to the eye, and it makes the home a little stronger. So if we click this, you can see we staggered the seam like this all the way. That should be how you do it around the whole house. Let's take this away real quick though. I want to show you this siding. There we go. So there's a piece of siding out here, and I want to just kind of look at it. That way you know kind of how it goes. This notch right here, this is going to sit. This notch is going to sit right there on the as you stack it on each other. So let's see if we can get a look at it over here on our model. Let's get rid of that. So right there you can see that notch is sitting right on that siding, the bottom piece of siding in the thinner part. It's designed to do that. So make sure that they have that down all the way. Make sure that inside they're checking to make sure that this seam is tight. We don't want a bunch of gaps. If it's gapping pretty badly, they're going to have to take the piece off and do it again. We don't want to really have them do that. So just stress the importance of it before they start doing the whole wall. So make sure they're checking that, and then they can just keep going crazy with the siding all the way till you get to this point. This is as far as you're going to be able to go until the roof system is on, because you're going to need to put blocking in and a bunch of other things that we'll show you here in a second. So this will be as far as you can go until the roof system is together. So make sure you're kind of trying to keep an eye on timing, getting this roof system, this roof framed in by the time that they get up with this siding. Try to get them to happen at the same time. That way, the people that are doing siding don't ever slow down or have to stop and wait. So we'll leave that on there just like that, and then we will talk about the second top plate and the roof system. So as you can see, we are going to put a second top plate on the whole house everywhere. Notice, though, that we are basically overlapping every wall joint, where one wall met another. So here we have wall G. We'll get rid of this row siding here so you can see a little better. You have wall H met wall B here, and there's a seam right here. See it? And then we brought the second top siding to cover that seam to make it stronger, to join everything together. See, wall G here met wall B, and we brought it past to kind of cover that joint. Same here, same here, same here. If you notice, here we did the same thing. Now, we didn't do it here, and we should have, shouldn't we? So just pay attention to that. If this happens, it's not the end of the world, but you want to try to avoid it. So it should never look like this. We're going to pretend I put that in there just to, show you a bad example. So, but it should never look like this. So make sure that, that top plate should have ran out here, because wall B connects into wall D, and there's a seam right there. See it? All right, so once you have all the second top plate on, you brought it out here, you put these little nuggets on back there, these little 1-footers out here. You can go ahead and put the posts on that are going to support the beam. So you can see that. Kind of put that back on there like that. Okay, so we have 5 posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can see them there. Basically, we are putting these right down the middle of the house on wall B, and then the beam is going to sit on there, and then we're going to run rafters off of that beam, and we're going to form a gable roof here. It's going to look like a triangle. It's a peaked roof, essentially. These posts are made from a 32-inch 2x4 and a 37.5-inch 2x4. And let me pull up the cut sheet so you can see them. Beam post, you see that? 32. And then beam post sides, or beam side post, or however we're saying it here, is 37.5. So you should have 5 and 5 of them. So let's get rid of that. Nail those together. They should be pretty firm. And then what's really important about this whole deal is we are flushing the 37.5-inch side here, the outside of it, with the outside of wall B here, or the side of wall B. So you see how it's flush there. If you notice right here, it doesn't come all the way to this side of wall B. So we're going to flush it up on this side. We did it there, we did it there, we did it there, and we did it there. The reason that we do that is because we want to use these posts as nailers right there for this siding to continue up all the way to the beam that we're going to put in. So you'll be able to see that in a minute. And it's also a good way to line these up straight, to use one side, because this should be nice and straight and plumb, and it should create a straight line. Wall B should create a straight line for us to line these posts up. So I like to tack these posts in with a couple, 2-inch nails. If you want, you can throw a 3.5-inch nail in them if you want to. It's up to you. The front one is gonna be right in the corner here with wall B and wall H. This one is going to line up so that half of the post is inside here of wall G and half is outside of it, just like that. We'll talk about this middle post in a second. This back post is going to be flush with the outside of the wall of wall D. And then I like to put this post directly over the double stud here where wall E meets wall B. I like to put it directly over there. This one is going to be exactly where the two halves of our beam meet. So let me throw the beam on there so you can see what I'm talking about. You see that's where they meet right there, that seam. We have a 14-foot, one 14-foot 2x6. It's the only one that you're going to have delivered, and then you're going to have a 12-foot 2x6 to make a 26-foot long beam because that's the length of our roof. And they'll meet right here. So because this overhang here, which you can see in the plans, is a foot, okay? You're going to have 1 foot of that 14-foot 2x6 hanging over. So what you can do is you can take a tape measure from here on the outside of the wall, right, of wall D, pull it this way, and you can center it on basically 13 feet exactly, like that, and that's where you can set that post at, if that makes sense. So you're going to center this basically on the 13 pulled from the back wall right there, and you can nail it in. Let's get rid of this beam though, because it's not, you don't want it up yet. I just put it up there as an example. You're going to put braces on these posts to hold these posts level. It's important that they're level. So you're going to take a level, your 4-foot level, put it on the side there, level it up, and you're going to nail in little braces here. These braces are not on the cut sheet, but basically you're going to find a 1 to 1.5 foot 2x4s that are just lying around or extra, they're cut off, and you're going to cut a 45 angle here and a 45 angle there on this brace. And stick it in there and nail it in into the post and nail it into the wall to hold this level. So put a level on there, put your brace in, nail it, keep it level as you nail it. That should hold it level. We put 3 here because there are three sides to put it on. 3 sides to put your braces on. Here you only have the 2. 1, 2. You only can put 2 braces there. Here, the same thing, you can only put 2. Here you can put 3. In the back you can put 3. Just a quick tip, what I found is on these 2 that have just 2 braces, I'll come in here and I'll actually find a piece of siding that's a little longer or something, or a piece of wood that's maybe 3-4 feet long that's just kind of hanging around left over. And I'll actually brace these. I'll put these in here, but I'll also brace bigger ones out just to hold it until the roof's on, because I found that when you nail the beam into these posts, sometimes these ones that have the just two, it's easier to knock them out of level as you nail that beam onto these posts. So this back one, what I do is I actually take a 1x4 and I run the 1x4 from here to the top of there just to brace it like we did this wall, just to hold that level as well. I like to do that. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I like everything to be as solid and straight as I can before I put the beam on, and then I start running patterns for my rafter. So let's put our beam in. Okay, you're gonna measure a foot a foot, make a line or something right there, and then you're going to bring this so there's exactly a foot overhang here to match these down here. Okay, that way we have a foot here of roof overhang to protect the window and the wall from rain. When you line it all up, you should have a foot on the other end. So that's that's what I think you all should do. Nail it in, take 3.5-inch nails, nail them in, like 3 nails at least. Try to put them in an angle so you don't have nails poking out the other side of the beam here. And once that's in, guys, we can go ahead and mark out our rafters and start running rafters. But first, we are going to show you the layout here. So as you can see, I've marked kind of like you would wall plates, but I've marked on top of the plate here where exactly these rafters should go. So just to quickly go over it, and then I'm going to show you on the 2D plans as well. This is the layout. So you're going to have one all the way flush on the end out here. You're going to have another one that's going to flush up to the outside of wall D. And then you're going to pull a tape measure from the outside of wall D there to the center. Should be 4 feet. These rafters are going to go every 4 feet, okay? So you're going to pull from the outside there 4 feet, another 4 feet, another 4 feet, 4 feet again, and then out here you'll have the same thing you do on the other end, flush to the outside, and then this rafter flush to the outside of this wall, which is wall H. You're going to pull the beam to correspond with this sidewall here. So you have one on the end, you have one that'll line up to the outside of wall D, and then from that line there you can hook your tape measure like right there, and then you're going to pull centered 4 feet. 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet, and then outside of wall H, flush there, and then to the end. The other side is just a little different. It's basically the same, but with one minor variance. We're talking about the side with the porch here. It's the same thing. You're going to line it up to the end, flush the outside of wall D every 4 feet, okay? 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet. But when you get here, okay, it's going to change a little bit. Again, you want your rafter to be the outside of the wall, flush with the outside of the wall, so this is wall G. But instead of going 4 feet from here to this one out here, you're actually going to go 5 feet. The reason that we do that is to center this rafter a little bit more in the porch area, and then we hang a light from there. I know that sounds really kind of weird and just cosmetic, but just do that to give it a nice touch. And we're not breaking a 4 foot gap anywhere because we have this rafter here. It'd be one thing if we pulled from here to here was 5 feet and there was no rafter here. It'd be too big of a span, but because we have this one in here, we can kind of go off the alignment and do that. And it's not going to mess with screwing in our metal roofing at all because of the purlins, and I'll show you that in a second. Then this one obviously flush to the end. So once you've marked out all that on your beam and on your top of your wall plates here, you can go ahead and make your pattern for your roof. And so what you're going to do is you're going to get up on a ladder, you're going to look down this beam just like we're looking down it right now, and make sure it looks really straight, okay? Especially pay attention to the outside, so way out here and right in front of you. If it hooks like that a little bit right here or down there, right? Don't use that end to draw your pattern for your rafters. Use the end that looks really straight, okay? And then you want to start on the side that doesn't have the porch. You want to start on the opposite side of the porch over here, and I'll explain to you why in a little while. So we're going to go ahead and throw our first row of rafters there, okay? That's what it should look like, okay? So I want to show you what you do to figure out these rafters, and then kind of explain to you, how you need to go about nailing them up. So You're going to use every one of these rafters is a 2x6x12. Okay, they're not on the cut sheet. They're just in the pile, and each side is going to get 9 rafters. So what you want to do, let's just move this temporarily here. Let's move it out of the way. Let's move it maybe over there or something like that. Okay, you're going to get a 2x6. So I have a 2x6 here. We've actually, it's one that's already cut. So it's going to have this weird angle cut right there, and it's going to have a triangle cut here. How you figure out how to cut your rafter is you take it, okay, take a full 2x6. See if I can manipulate this really good. It's kind of a pain. All right. So we've got our 2x6 there. And you're going to hold it up to the beam, okay? So let's hold it up. Actually, I didn't bring my lines. Let's go back real quick. We're going to bring this whole thing. We're going to make this a group. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and grab it. Let's grab it right on that point there. Okay, thank you for your patience. Then we are going to hold it up right there. Okay, now we got it into place. All right, so this area here that's not filled in, you just see the lines, is where the 2x6 was before they cut it. Okay, so imagine that this is all filled in, it's all wood. Right, you're going to hold the point of the 2x6 up to the beam to this point here, okay? And then you're going to have somebody down here on a ladder. So you'll have somebody right here on a ladder, somebody down here on a ladder. They're going to hold basically this 2x6 to be down, down just an inch and a half. So you just want to hold this down to where it covers this. It falls right in between basically this plate and the second top plate, right on that point there. Okay, so they're going to hold it there just like that, and then they're both going to take a pencil, okay, and then they're going to trace out that angle there, trace that triangle angle. You see how we get it? Then they're going to trace it right here as well. They're going to just trace right there, holding it nice and steady and together. That way, when they take it off, they'll know exactly where to cut, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So they're going to bring this down to the saw somewhere, okay? And then you should be able to see, again, pretend that this is filled in. You should be able to see this triangle traced out with a pencil. And then you're just going to take a circular saw, slice it here, and then you'll have that triangle cut out. The same up here. You're going to see this line right here. Again, imagine this is filled in. They're going to see this pencil mark right here, and they just slice that. And then you're going to have your pattern, is what it's called. And it's called a pattern because you're going to use that 2x6 that you just marked as a stencil to cut the rest. So take that piece that you got, that you cut, put it up there, test it out in its spot right there. Let's bring everything back. Okay, test it out so it lines up on the beam and it sits on those 2 marks that you made. If it looks good, take it down a little further, test it out in another spot where you're supposed to put it. See, you can see where we marked out. Okay, if it looks good, use that as a stencil. So basically you set that 2x6 on the one that you cut and you tested on top of another 2x6. You trace it out on like a set of sawhorses. Then you cut the same thing, and then you have your pattern, and away you go. So you can hang them one after another. Just remember, when you've hung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? The 9th one is going to be that pattern piece that you're going to use. That way you don't overcut them. Does that make sense? So you're going to trace out 8 and use the pattern as the 9th. I hope that makes sense. If you're going and you're finding that this triangle here is not sitting tight against the wall, you know, it's getting a little too, there's a gap in here, you know, something like, something like that, where there's a gap in there like that. It's probably because your beam is a little wavy up here. Your beam's a little wavy, or your wall is a little wavy at the top, because again, we're working with wood that has bows in it that's imperfect wood. So push and pull this top of this wall and this beam to straighten it out. You know, if they're all the same measurement, when you're all done, you're going to have a straight line. Okay, so you're going to have a straight line here. You're going to have a straight line there at the top plate. So just push the stuff and work with it as you need to go. On this other side, you're going to do the same thing, okay? But when you mark your pattern, don't mark in the section where in the side where the porch is, but mark your pattern off the back side. Trace it out back there, because this post here might be a little wobbly. So if you set a 2x6 across there like that, and this is just kind of leaning out a little bit, you're going to make a false pattern that won't work anywhere else. So make sure you come to the back. You know, it's locked and solid here, this part here, so you can trace your pattern here and then test it out, and away you go. So let's throw those in there. All right, there are 2 rafters that are going to be a little different than all the other ones, because they don't sit flat against this beam. They sit on the post. So take one of them that you've cut, a normal one like this, set it in there, trace out that 1.5 inches for where it's going to sit on this post, right? Slice it again, slice that angle again, so right there, slice it, and then you can set them in there. You see how they sit on that post instead of the flat against the beam like that one? That's the only difference. There's one there. There's one back there. So that's kind of how you do it. So let's take a quick look at our plans, and you can see how this layout is supposed to be. Remember, we have it flush. Wow, keeps doing that on me. Sorry. We have it flush to the outside. I did it again. Oh man. All right. Flush to the outside. Flush the outside of the wall there, this being wall D. This blue area is wall D. And then from there, on the outside of that, maybe we'll zoom in here. There we go. The outside of that rafter, outside of wall D, you're going to pull a 4-foot center. 4 foot, 4 foot, 4 foot, 4 foot, 4 foot, and then, or sorry, this one will be flush with the outside of wall H, and then flush out there. So that's kind of how that goes. Let's take a look at the other side. Notice we have that 5-foot span we talked about. 2 and a 3 is 5. That's because we're centering that for the light. But other than that, every 4 feet, just like we talked about. So you can refer to this part of the list, or this part of the 2D plans, if you need a refresher. And now we're going to do purlins, okay? And here is the purlin page if you need a reminder about that. So let's take a look at the plans there, or the purlin deal here. Before we do the purlins though, I forgot. Let's talk about what you can do for the people doing siding and electrical at this point, once you have all your rafters framed in. So you could put your siding blocking in, what we talked about, so you can keep going with siding. So you can see underneath here, let me click it off and click it on. See it? See the blocks we're going to put in there? We're going to put 2 more inside here, so it's going to be flush with the side of wall B, and it's going to nail into the side of the beam, just like that. You're going to put 2 right over these two studs in the wall. See that stud here and this stud here? Just put them directly over that. Put a level on them. Make sure they look nice and straight, and then go ahead and nail them. Nail them in here, and then nail it in here. Okay, once these blocks are in above these two studs here, you can continue, or your team can continue to put this siding all the way up to the beam. We'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. As far as these gable end blocks that we put in, let me click and unclick them again so you can see. They are going to be flush to the outside of the wall, okay? And then they're going to go actually directly underneath of the rafter right there. So you're going to have to cut this angle. My suggestion is to find a scrap piece of 2x4. Put it where you want to nail it in. On this wall, I have them going directly over the studs, but they're basically evenly spaced in here to provide enough nailers for the siding. Put them where you want them to go. Put a level on each block, and then trace that angle right there, and then take them to a saw, cut them, and then put them under there and nail them in. I've seen people try to nail these in with 3.5-inch nails. That's ridiculous. Just use 2-inch nails. Tack them in pretty good, and that'll be plenty. Let's take a look at them everywhere else. You see here, there's no really studs for me to line these up with, so I just line this one up with a stud there where the window is, and then I just evenly space them in there to provide enough nailers for this siding to go all the way up. In the back, kind of similar where the doorway is, I just kind of put 2 in there evenly spaced, and then 1 kind of out here, all 3 evenly spaced, I guess I did there. Same here, I did them right where the studs are. I don't know if you can see that or not, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's a stud here, and a stud here, then I just put them right over that. Let's take a look at the siding done, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. You can tell this is how we're doing it here. So once those blocks are in, it's going to go all the way to the top of this rafter. We cut them even with the top of that rafter. It's sort of the same principle if you've done sheetrock in Mexico or sheetrock in general. We're just kind of cutting that angle out and putting it in there. So it makes it look really nice when you're viewing it from the outside. Here we had to cut out that beam right there. No big deal, but that's kind of what it looks like there. And then let's take a look at the front. Okay, so we went all the way up here. You can see why we needed those blocks to go in there, because we kept going up here, and then we went all the way up to the peak here, again going even with the rafter there, even with the rafter. You'll also notice that we put these little ones in. Before I showed you those weren't in yet, but my suggestion for doing those little ones, let me put that one row in there again. I guess it's this row here. Okay, put this piece in before you do any of this side over here. Put this piece in right there that goes above the door all the way over, and then put these in backwards. So instead of going from the floor up just like you did over here, kind of go backwards, because a lot of times if you start going up on this side, by the time you get up here, by the time you get up there, the top of this siding piece and the top of this one don't line up anymore. Therefore, this piece won't sit nice anymore. So that's just kind of a quick tip. What else can you do? Excuse me. What else can you do after you've gotten these rafters in? Well, you can go ahead and put hurricane ties in. I'll show you those. You should be familiar with those if you've done a Mexico house or a Guatemala house. But if you haven't done any of our houses, basically they're these metal pieces here like that that rest against the wall and rest against the rafter. So it kind of has like a twist in it. You need to put at least 3 nails in here and 3 nails into there with 2-inch nails. You're going to go every other rafter. Okay, so if you did one here, then this one, then this one, then this one, and then that one. On the outside there, the same on this side, here, 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 every other. We also do it up in the beam, so nail it into the beam and nail it into the side of the rafter and do every other on each side. Here we kind of staggered it. We did on this side, we put it in this one, on this side we did it in this one, and this one. You can see it right there on that one right there. So you can do hurricane ties. You can do light boxes for people doing electricity if they need something to do at this point. You can see the light boxes we have. So like I was telling you, we have one light box that sits right here in the middle. So you want to measure the middle of this porch area, go straight up, and then that's where you want to hang your light box. We've got two light boxes here, okay? Two light boxes here. So this double switch is going to connect to that light and the porch light, and then this double switch here is going to connect to this light and that light out there. That light out there we just mounted right underneath of the beam there. And then we have a light box in each one of these rooms on the side, these bedrooms. One here, one there, and one there. So they can do that. You can have those hung for them so that whoever's running your electricity can keep going with that. So once those are up, you can go ahead and put your purlins on. These are called purlins. Basically, you're just taking 1x4s, making 5 rows on each side, and that's going to give our metal something to screw to. So let me go ahead and throw those purlins on so you can see them. Okay. So the first row of purlins on each side are going to be flush to the end. Okay, so flush to the very end, just right across. But from there, you're going to go every 3 feet. So 3 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet on these rows. Okay, 3 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet. The same on the other side. Up 3 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet. What I do is I make a line on each end, and then I chalk a line across, and then I have a line to nail my purlins on. You don't necessarily have to center the purlin on that line. You could use the top side of the purlin and put it against that line, or the bottom side. It doesn't really matter to me. It's close enough. The top is what really matters. You want to use your straightest 1x4s here to do your top, because we're going to use this top to line up our metal roofing, and I'll show you that in a minute. But basically, to get this row, you can see this little gap here. You want a 2-inch, about 2 inches, see that 2 inch? You want a 2-inch gap or distance from the beam to the top of the purlin row. This little area here, this little gap area, is going to provide airflow for air to come out the peak and go out the ridge cap. The ridge cap you'll see in a minute. But chalk your line 2 inches from the beam, and then line your straightest 1x4s up on that line. Then you're going to use that to line up your metal. You're going to use 2-inch nails to nail these purlins in. You're going to stagger your seams. So you can see we have a seam here. So we have 2 whole 1x4s here. They're 16 feet long, so you should be able to do that. But on the next row, you have a short piece, a long piece, and a short piece, and then the middle row here is the same as the top row, which is fine, but stagger your seams. Once those are all on, you can go ahead and start putting metal on, so we'll show you that right now. Your first piece of metal, okay, this is, they call it alucine here in the Dominican, alucine. It is a really great product, but really sharp. Do not put this on if it's raining, ever. If it's super windy, it's a judgment call on your part as well, but you don't want to put any of our team members in a dangerous position. And also make sure whoever is doing it has a pair of gloves or borrows a pair of gloves from somebody else. You can see our side. Each side of this are kind of different. this has a completed kind of hump, and this one has a like 2/3 of the way. It doesn't go all the way down. That's because this side here is the overlap side, and this is the side that will sit flat on the purlin. See how this metal is sitting on these purlins? So this little tab here tells you that this is the side that sits against the purlin, and then the next piece of allicine you're gonna actually have this other overlap side come over top of this, and we'll show you that in a second. But what I want to point out is that you don't have to cut this at all if you're building a normal house. If you don't have to do any kind of special alterations, it's 12 feet long. It should work out perfectly. You want this end here, this side, to come past the purlin a little bit. You see that, how it comes past it a little bit there? Because you don't want the rain to come, get on the purlin, and then run inside the house. You want it to just hit the metal. Up at the top here, remember I talked about how this top row of purlin is going to be what you line up to keep this straight. See how we lined that piece of metal roofing there, this allicine, right on the top edge of this purlin run? That's what you're going to do, and that's how you're going to match it up the whole way. Also, you're going to use, we have these little screws that have rubber rings on them, like rubber washers that will point out to you when you get here to build a home. You're going to use those screws to screw this metal down, and you're going to use you're going to use 3 screws here on this purlin run. So you'd put a screw here, a screw in the middle, and a screw on the right there in the valley part, not on this hump. Don't put any screws in this hump, but in this valley part, close to the outside of it, like here and here, put a screw, and then one in the middle. The second row, purlin row, you're going to put a screw right through the middle, but you're only going to do 2. You're going to do 1 here and 1 here, and then 3 again, 1, 2, 3, then just 2, 1, 2, and then 3 again, 1, 2, 3. So you're going to have 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Okay? All right, so let's put the second piece there so you can see it. This is how it's going to line up, okay? Let's draw a line. You want this corner of this little angle here, this corner, to line up with that right there. That way it's perfect, because this flat piece here, this flat part, should sit flat on that, okay? You see that? The whole way. So set it on there, and then make sure that this piece here lines up with that top purlin row, and once it's lined up in both of those spots, you can go ahead and screw that one down as well, and away you go. So let's get rid of that. I'll show you what it looks like all together. Okay? It'll look just like that. One thing I didn't mention about these purlins, okay, let's take up our metal roofing. These purlins come 9 inches past the last rafter. So 9 inches here, okay, and 9 inches here. See the 9-inch overhang? You know, the factory keeps sending us different width allicine. It never seems to be consistent, but we run with 9 inches. We start off the front, we go back, and you know, if you put all your allicine down, right, and you have a little bit more purlin left over, like out here, go ahead and cut it off. Just get a saw and slice it underneath in that where this peak is here of the allicine. Just cut it, so cut it back. If the allicine ends up being a few inches too long, no big deal. Okay, no big deal. So just be aware of that. And then you just do the same on the other side, but whatever side you started the first half, start the second half. So if you started in the front, start in the front again and go that way. That way you know 100% that they're going to line up together. Okay, and so it'll look like that when it's all done. You know, when you look down, it should look nice and straight and even because you did a good job lining it up on that purlin row. Ooh, sorry about that. On that purlin row right there. All right, and then you can go ahead and put the ridge cap on. The ridge cap looks like this. Okay, it's just a cap. The interesting thing about the ridge cap is you don't screw it into any wood. It just goes into the metal. I'll show you that in a minute. But first you want to line up this center seam here on the beam, in the center of the beam. So line it up here. Have whoever's on the roof line it up in the middle there. See how we have it lined up? Okay, and then you want it to come just past the metal allicine here. That way when it rains, it doesn't run underneath of it. And then you're going to put a screw through the ridge cap into the peak of every piece of allicine, at every single peak on both sides. They're designed to lock in when you screw it metal to metal. You don't have to screw it into, you don't have to push on it so hard that it catches into the wood. It just needs to screw right into the metal, okay? It's very important because your roof will look all janky if you try to force it into the wood. The second piece, just like that, line it up. You're going to have about a valley to a valley and a half overlap here. And then go ahead and screw that in. And then all together, it looks like this. These pieces of ridge cap are 10 feet long. So you're going to have a total, because the roof is 26 feet long and the ridge cap would equal 30 feet long if they were end to end. You're going to have about 4 feet or 2 feet of overlap on each one, more or less. So once that's screwed in, your roof is done. Congratulations. It's now shady and cool inside the house, hopefully. Let's get rid of all of that roofing so we can see inside the house again. Because there's a few things for us to do still. So let's see here. We can get rid of this one. Get rid of these gable ends, light boxes, hurricane ties, blocking, and the rafters. Okay. Okay. You can go ahead and do plywood. So let's get that going on. You're going to get a piece of plywood that looks like that. It's 4 feet by 8 feet long. What you can't tell is we've actually cut this piece of plywood because we want it to run even with the top of the second top plate, and we want it to be off the floor about a ½ inch. So find something to shim underneath of this piece of plywood. Mark where it needs to be cut it, and then put it into place. It should be so that you can put one piece in the middle here, and then one whole piece without cutting the width, and then another piece here and another piece here. So we'll show you that right now. You're going to use 2-inch nails to nail this in. They're going to be vertical instead of horizontal, and yeah, just cut it, and it'll look good. You only need to do one side. Obviously, we only did one side, as you can see, and then do the side where the living room is here. So that's kind of how you can see how it goes. Some sheets there, above the door, in the middle there. Just make it look as nice and pretty as possible. You can go ahead and cut out the bottoms of your doors here. Those don't need to be in there. I haven't done that on this 3D model. Haven't figured out really how to do that. So just know that you can cut those out. We can go ahead and show you the windows. Okay, the windows are metal and louvered. Okay, let's take a look at a window here. I think I have an example. There we go. Okay, you're going to use this frame here to be your guide on how basically to line it up before you screw it in. But when you have it lined up, you're going to put 3 screws in each side, one through the metal frame into the wood here, in the middle, and at the top. We have black screws for that. They're like drywall screws. We'll talk you through that when you get here. Screw here, screw in the middle, screw at the top. Okay, and once you're happy with it, basically you take the frame, the face of the frame, and you line it up with the outside of the siding, and that's how far you want it sitting out. Obviously the bottom doesn't have a frame really, it's a really thin piece. Just use the sides here and then go ahead and screw it in. It's really that simple. They should have the handles already installed, so you don't have to install any handles. The louvers are metal and already, you know, installed, so you don't have to worry about any of that. So you'll put those 6 windows in. Let's talk about the door frames for a second. The door frames come in 3 pieces, like you see here. A hinge side, a non-hinge side, and then a top side, like that. You'll notice the top side has these little tabs here. See those tabs? They're going to fit into these little grooves that are on the frame. Each long side here, whether the hinge side or the non-hinge side, has the tabs at both sides, so you can really make a left or a right door, just depending on what you're doing. The way that our home is set up right now, there's a left and a right door, so you need one of each. So once you have that, you're going to put those tabs through those little slits. Let me show you that here. As you can see, they fit right through there. See that? Just like that. Make sure they're nice and flat like this one though. You know, it's all the way tight. Then you can go ahead and take a hammer and you can bend that tab down. It's really flexible, and that's kind of what locks those into place. Once you've done that, take your frame over to your doorway here. Okay. Again, I haven't cut these bottoms out, so just ignore that. But what you want to do is you want to lift your frame, your door frame here, all the way up to this header piece, which means that it's going to sit off the floor a little bit. You see that little gap there? That's fine. That's what we want. There's no bottom weather stripping or anything like that. You want to lift it up off the floor, okay? And then we want the doors to open up into wall B, so into there and into wall B there. So this door back here is a left-handed door. This door in the front is a right-handed door. These frames also have holes in them. The hinge side frames, the hole is actually in the hinge part, so you'll put a 3.5-inch screw into those. You want the frame, just like the windows, to be even or flush with the outside of the siding here, not in the groove part there, but you can see kind of how we've lined it up to be equal with the outside of the siding. You're going to put 3 screws on this side and then 3 screws on the other side, okay? Once your door is installed, which I'll show you right now, you can shut it, come back, and you might need to shim this side to come closer to the doorway so that it shuts nice and tight. But you won't be able to check that till your door's on. The door is loose, obviously, so what I do is I put a shim underneath of the door, and I shim it up to where I can check it and see that it's at a good height, like you see now. When it shuts, it's gonna shut against this little piece here. It's gonna shut tight there. So once I'm happy with the height of it, I come in with those screws that we have. I line up the center seam of the door with the top hole and the bottom hole, and then I screw it in. And then I'll come and screw that one in. And I just go right down, screw them in, line them up with that seam, screw them in, and then you're ready to go. You can put your door hardware in, you can install your door handles. We'll show you all that when you get here as well, that are in your nail crates. Yeah, so basically once you get to this point, all your wire is run, and you've done all that we've covered. Let's just go ahead and put everything back in here. Thank you for your patience through this whole video. I hope that I've explained it really well. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the DR office at any point. to give you a a helping hand or to go over this with you, we're more than happy to help you. The only thing left to do is trim, so I'm going to put that on there. We use 1x4s. The important thing about trimming out the windows is to seal across where the window space and the window are. So we cover that seam there. Let me just take this off. We cover this seam right there. Okay. The same with the doors. We cover that seam. So you're going to come over on the frame a little bit. And then other than the windows and doors, we box in the corners like so. Okay, create a nice box, cover that corner up real nice. We do the same thing in the inside. We put one in here just to cover that joint in really nice so you can't see the cuts. Box each corner in. You can see back there we box that corner in as well. Box all the corners in, and that's it. The only other thing I would point out here is there should be a gap here underneath to allow air to run underneath this roof and push the air to the peak and out the peak so that it cools it off. We didn't talk about this last piece of siding or row siding you put on the sides, but basically you notch the rafters out and nail it in, and you should have a little gap there, like 4 inches, 3 inches or so. So it's designed for the air to flow through those rafters and then circulate through the peak, through the ridge cap there, to get all the hot air out of the roof. So, well, good job, guys. Thank you for paying attention, and we hope to see you in the Dominican Republic, and we look forward to working with you. So, have any questions again, feel free to contact us. Have a good day.